This episode of the Flying Pigskin Show is sponsored by BRG Apartments.
Do pigs fly? Why, yes, they do. And sometimes they crash in Indianapolis. Welcome to the Flying Pigskin Show. It's why Al Gore invented the internet. With Chris Riva, I'm Ken Brew. Catherine Nero is checking social media as we bring you the final installment of this show for the 2014 season.
Welcome.
It's good to see you, Chris.
Happy New Year to you.
This is the man you can see every morning from 5 until 7 on WCPO, 9 on your side. All right, you watched the game yesterday. I watched the game yesterday. I feel for Andy Dalton in this sense. He had nobody to throw to. And if I'm going to go blame centric here, which is what everybody's all about anyway when it comes to sport, I'm going to go to the Spartan Bengals front office that should have given him better options than what he had to throw to yesterday.
It's so hard to win any game in the NFL, let alone a postseason game, when your best offensive and defensive players are on the field. And I understand Devontae hasn't been on the field for quite some time now. And the Bengals have done a really outstanding job to get to this point with next man up. But yesterday there were just no weapons. And it appeared a little bit, well, when you go 5 straight 3-and-outs to start the second half, and they were really dominated in the first half as well. It just wasn't good, and it results into what they have dealt with the last 4 consecutive seasons.
Marvin Jones had the best financial day in his life yesterday. He hasn't played a down of football since August.
Is he going to be able to come back?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think if he does come back, he's a rich man, because if that's the best they've got, if Mohamed Sanu and Greg Little and all of these other guys they rolled out there, Rex, God bless him, Burkhead, who was out there as the 3rd wide receiver, if that's the best they got, Marvin Jones just made a lot of money yesterday.
And, you know, no glaring one of the biggest injuries that we didn't really see the results of all season long happened, on the opening series or opening drives against Baltimore and Tyler Eifert. And no Gresham, it was brutal.
Somebody made the comment on the game broadcast on radio yesterday. It might have been Lapham. If you look at the 2 tight ends that Baltimore rolled out there yesterday, and look at the tight ends that Cincinnati rolled out there yesterday.
Johnny Unitas wasn't quarterbacking. It's the Indianapolis Colts, not the Baltimore Colts.
What did I say?
You said Baltimore.
Well, I'm an old man with an old brain.
There is move of the Rams moving this morning, so we're nostalgic a bit.
Chris, you'll be there someday. I'm an old man with an old brain. Okay, it happens. Okay. But the fact is they had 2 quality tight ends. Cincinnati's best tight ends didn't play yesterday.
And then how about just the lack of pass rush?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's 2 straight weeks.
I was reading
yesterday. They didn't even make him, lean to his right or his left at the time.
J.J. Watt had more sacks than the Bengals collectively, and there's an outside linebacker from the Chiefs, I believe his name is Jared Houston, who had collectively more sacks as an individual than the entire Bengals team did, and yesterday they just could not get any pressure on him.
Arthur at the Kroger in Madeira sacked more things yesterday than any Bengal defensive lineman. Brooms. Oh, my gosh. All right, download the WCPO app if for no other reason. Lousy weather's coming in, and you want to make sure you got the latest and greatest from the weather department. But that's a great way to listen to this show on the way into to work or to school on your car. Food for thought next year. And then, of course, all of these shows that we've done this year are available for your downloading pleasure.
Have we been picked up for next season?
We don't know that yet. No, we don't know we've been picked up yet. The fall schedule hasn't come out yet. But neither has it for the Bengals, so we'll see whether or not we're both there. Got a big show coming up. Jim Breach is going to join us in a bit. Brad Brown from our script station in Indianapolis, WRTV. Maybe he could explain to us what WRTV stands for. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
Real television.
What television?
Real television.
Real television, perhaps. Doug Pelfrey's going to be here. Mr. Sattin's here, and Catherine Nero, as we mentioned, is in the newsroom, and she is tracking social media. You familiar with this stuff? Where you can actually,
not at all. She handles all of my social media because she's, keeping the pulse.
She handles all of my social engagements.
Well, so you're a busy man, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Speaking of which, where you been the last couple of weeks?
I was on assignment.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah, I was on assignment. I was trying to figure out, is it the left side of the bed that's most comfortable or the right side?
We thought you were down in OU looking for Destiny.
Destiny? Yeah, no.
I'm not letting it go. I'm not letting it go.
Although I'll tell you what, there's an update there. A friend of mine that I roomed with.
A Destiny update.
A Destiny update. She had hip replacement surgery right before Thanksgiving. But she's 62, but she doesn't look a day over 58. So we'll have more on that as we progress through the next half hour. Is Jim Breach with us?
He is. Good
Great.
morning, Jim.
I went to bed and said goodnight to Jim, and now I'm waking up this morning and saying good morning to Jim.
People are going to start to talk.
Sports of all sorts with us. Jim, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, guys.
I don't care whether it was Johnny Unitas or Peyton Manning or whether it was, you pick a quarterback, he was going to struggle with what he had to work with yesterday. I kind of let Dalton off the hook yesterday, don't you?
Yeah, very much so. It's, look, when you have to put a running back out, a wide receiver in a playoff game, and not by choice, then you have some issues, and it's unfortunate. Kobe Hamilton comes up off the practice squad. It's tough. And then, Brandon Tate is in there, and he hasn't played a ton. He's played some this year and had a few receptions, but basically he's there as a kick returner. And then Sanu, and it was a tough one. And then you don't have Gresham, although Burkhead played pretty well, and Ryan Hewitt, I think, has really shown some flashes that they've got something special there down the road.
Well, and as I mentioned, Marvin Jones didn't play this year. Chris mentioned that for all intents and purposes, Tyler Eifert didn't play this year. So I mean, if you just look at the wealth of talent that's there, I mean, yeah, the future is bright, but I just think that what just stuck with me yesterday was they knew pretty much the whole week that they weren't going to have most of these guys. Maybe Gresham was iffy there towards the end. It seemed to me that there was just something missing from the game plan. I went home after you and I left last night, and I watched the game. I TiVo'd the game, and it just seemed like, again, there was just something missing. It was almost like an engine that just had like 7 pistons. Even with what they had, there was just something missing there. And I don't know if that makes any sense. Largely what I say doesn't. But did it seem to you that there was just something missing there? They just couldn't get off the dime.
Well, I think particularly in the second half. The first half, they started with the end around to Burkhead was a big play, and the slant to Burkhead. And Burkhead was a big part of the early part of the game, and then you didn't see him again in the second half. In the second half, got more into kind of just run the ball a couple times, and then try and throw on third down, or occasionally mix it up and throw on first down. But it became more like the game back in October, or whenever the game was when they first played, in Indy. There just was no flow to the offense in the second half, and and then the defense was having trouble getting off the field because there wasn't any pass rush. So you combine the two, the 3 and outs. Indianapolis held the ball for almost 10 minutes more. So I guess I can understand why the defensive line was getting tired, because Luck was throwing on every other down, and at the same time they weren't getting any pass rush, so they were on the field for a long time.
Isn't it sort of sad, though? We as Bengal fans, and I think you count yourself as that, Jim, we're used to this too much. I mean, you felt it sort of grow, and you just settle in, and then you just start trying to not care because this is what's coming. I mean, does anybody else? That's how it is with me. And I've been a Bengal fan, and I go to all the games, and you just sense it starting, and you've been sort of afraid all year that this is where we were going to be, and then it's like, oh my God, I've started to believe there for a second, but no, here it comes. They're just going to fall into the hole. But you're right, they had not enough players, but it's just too much. They've scored 10 points in the last 3 playoff games, 3 or 4. That's never going to win the game.
No, particularly yesterday against an offense typically it has been one of the best in the league, although the last few weeks they hadn't been putting up big numbers, and you're hopeful that you could keep them to the 19 points that they've been scoring versus the 27 or 28 that they were the first part of the year. And 19 points certainly wouldn't have gotten it done either.
Jim, a couple of things. A writer on ESPN.com today, and every writer has his own opinion, but one of the writers on ESPN.com today suggested that the Bengals draft a quarterback. I mean, a real challenge to Dalton next summer when camp opens. They have A.J. McCarron from last year. Jason Campbell is still around. Do you think part of the problem with Dalton is that he isn't challenged? And I can't for the life of me believe that Mike Brown would invest more money in that position. But do you think that's an option for them as they go forward?
I would be really surprised. I think they'll look at this on offense and, with considering the personnel that they were expecting to have, and certainly there's going to be injuries versus what they had at the end of the season. Like you guys said, I don't think you can put it all on Dalton. And if you're that backup guy who potentially could be playing, are you really going to come here for a guy that has never missed a game? It was kind of the problem with how do you find a backup in Indianapolis for Peyton Manning for many years? He never missed a game. Why would you want to go there and by choice if you thought you had a chance to play? So there's plenty of places that need guys. If I'm a backup quarterback that has a chance to play, I'm not coming to Cincinnati because chances are that's not going to happen.
Right.
And, when you talk about revamping, reloading, if they don't make changes, you know what's going to happen. They're going to draft defensive linemen. They're going to draft defensive back.
Well, they need defensive linemen.
They do.
They need somebody.
There's no doubt about it. Jim, I wanted to ask you a question. Hugh Jackson now has been granted permission to interview in Buffalo. Two-part question to this. One is how significant would a loss be for Hugh from that standpoint? And then how significant would it be for 2 consecutive years to lose an offensive coordinator?
Well, I think losing an offensive coordinator for a second consecutive year would be a big deal. Although, because he was with the team while Gruden was there, I'm sure a lot of the terminology stayed in place. So, I think that I was kind of disappointed. I thought there would be more in the offense this year. Their run game got way better, especially with Hill coming on the latter part of the year. But, bringing an offensive coordinator in, I think is tough. But the thing you think is look at what Joe Flacco did this year. Look what Eli Manning did this year, where now Eli Manning started off a little slower, but once they got comfortable with those new offensive schemes in those 2 places, those guys had really, really great years. So, it can be done. It's tough, though. It's tough to get everybody on the same page at times.
How eager do you think Hugh is going to be? I mean, I don't. He tried to be a loyal soldier this year and say that he was right in there with Andy, and they live and die together. But don't you think he's going to want to get out? I mean, I think he's got to see that this has limits and it's not going to get a whole lot better. I don't know about that. What I do feel pretty strongly about is that he wants to be. I'm sure he wants to be a head coach.
Absolutely.
He's been a head coach. He had a taste of it. Of course, he wants to be a head coach, just like Jay Gruden wanted to be a head coach, and probably 95% of the guys in the NFL, if given the opportunity, would love to be a head coach. So, I think he feels like they didn't get the job done this year, and he would love to have a full complement of players. He'd love to have Marvin Jones, and find out things. Mohamed Sanu in the slot, I think, would be huge. There's some things that are left. They just don't know. Tyler Eifert. Tyler Eifert could be one of the top tight ends in the league. We just don't know because we haven't had a chance to see him often enough.
And I was covering the Raiders when they terminated. I've never seen a coach more angry at a termination. He held a press conference afterwards saying not only how wrong he was, that he was going to prove how wrong the decision was. So there's no doubt he wants to be a head coach, I think, again.
I think that's a sentiment when the Raiders do that.
To anybody.
Historically.
Mike Shanahan's still angry about it. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Hey, Jim, this is the other speculation that's out there. I don't anticipate any change at the head coaching position. Do you, going forward, at least for the next year?
I would be really surprised unless the only thing I would say is if the Bengals really liked Hugh Jackson and they were concerned about losing him, that would they make a move there? Would they kick Marvin Lewis upstairs? Since Marvin Lewis and Duke Tobin have kind of taken over the personnel, particularly with Duke Tobin, I think Marvin's always been considered a pretty good talent evaluator. Mm-hmm. Is there something that would happen there and Hugh Jackson would become the head coach? But I don't think it would be at Marvin's expense as much as he would be moved into more of a GM de facto role. I don't know if that'll ever happen, right now, but in terms of talent evaluation and things along those lines.
Great having you with us this season, Jimmy. It ended a lot sooner than we had hoped, but you know, if I got to get up on a Monday, I want to see you.
Ken, I appreciate that, and on Sunday night also.
Yes, sir. Jim Breach.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Bengals all-time leading scorer. Thank you, Jim. We have to break right now. Much excitement because we have to just calm down for a moment. Much more to come. Mr. Satin is in the building. And we have Catherine Nero with social media, and we've yet to go to Indianapolis or Doug Pelfrey. So in other words, as we like to say in the business, we're just getting started, and we'll be right back after this very important message.
BRG Apartments is offering fantastic savings for every new move-in to one of BRG's 34 communities. Find your home before the holidays, and BRG will donate $50 to the Free Store Food Bank. Visit us at brgapartments.com.
And we're back. Chris Riva, as we continue on the final edition of the Flying Pigskin. Just to put a capper on what we were talking about with Jim, I do think, and you mentioned it, I do think they've got to figure out a way to increase pass rush. That was so anemic, particularly towards the end of the year. I don't think it's all Michael Johnson leaving. I think it's just whoever came in his place, Robert Gathers, whomever was over there. It just wasn't happening, and Dunlap, to me, was a big disappointment.
I also read an article that they felt like the defensive coordinator, Gunther, was very conservative in his play calling with that.
Well,
they seemed content to do that for the last couple of weeks. Right. They would just rush those four. They would almost just stand up and hold hands with the offensive linemen, and the quarterback would run left and right and do whatever he wanted.
Our definition of insanity from Albert Einstein is continuing to do the same thing over and over and again, expecting a different result. And until you have a coaching change, you're going to get the same thing.
A few years ago, they had it, but remember they had like 8 defensive linemen,
they just
like Frosty Rucker. I mean, and that was sort of Zimmer's thing. Yeah, and ever since that they got rid of 2 or 3 of them, and they couldn't do it. I don't know if it's...
But, Matty, nobody has 8 defensive linemen.
I understand. I mean, I don't know if it was they couldn't afford them or what, but when they rotated in about 7 or 8, they had a lot of pressure.
Gino's not the same either.
No.
Not even
and
close.
There's a lot of money tied up in that.
But we have one last poll question for this year.
Oh, good.
For people to ponder, and it's good over the whole season.
Good. Who would explain that to us? Is PJ back with us?
PJ's back. PJ.
Yes.
Good morning, PJ.
Hello, guys.
Good morning, PJ.
Happy
PJ
New
O'Keefe. He runs WCPO.com.
Like a marathon, per usual. Yeah, poll question. We've already forgotten about 2014, right? Or at least...
No.
Oh, we haven't?
Because we've lived the same thing for 4 years.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, anyway, so I guess that's an appropriate transition to what do the Bengals need to do for next year? Healthy? Is it a different game plan? Is it maybe just more aggression? One question, one answer that's not on here that perhaps I'll add later is, do we need to honor Bo Jackson to lift the curse of Bo? I'm calling it. I'm calling it legit. The Curse of Bo Jackson. Is everybody familiar with this?
Yes.
Everybody familiar with the Curse of Bo?
I was there.
Yes. Yes. In 1991, a hip injury that pretty much ended his stardom as the star athlete that he was.
Kevin Walker, I think.
Kevin Walker. Yes, sir. I'm calling it legit. I don't know exactly what needs to be done. I'm from Boston, so I'm a big believer in curses. And this is definitely one of them.
Get the bloody sock.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it the Curse of Marvin Lewis.
I'm into the occult, too. I think that last one probably would be what it is. I think, you know what we need to do is get a voodoo princess here and just have her go down to the stadium and just do some sort of ritual dance to just to rid us of it.
Put a statue of Bo up at Paul Brown. I don't know.
Right. Just bury a statue of Bo.
There you get Destiny after the hip replacement surgery.
Ooh, now you're talking. I mean, she wasn't into she was into other stuff, but she wasn't into the occult. But I'm sure she could help us. By the way, you speak of relationships, Chris.
Please.
And I just, in relationships, the big thing is moving on. You're done with whatever you had going.
Fan,
and
not as the Bengals organization.
Have you noticed that Matt Lukin has moved on? That he has on
That's
now
right.
Cincinnati Bearcats.
Did you notice that?
Because he's moved on.
That's right. All of us Bengal fans have to get to that point in the season, late in that playoff game, where you slink into the next season and you just sort of have to give up.
Hoops is beginning for you.
Yes. Well, yeah. It was in like early in the third quarter. I could just feel it.
So that's when you went to the closet?
Yeah, I've been a UC fan and a Bengal fan. In the 80s, UC basketball stunk when I was in college, but then the Bengals were pretty good. They were okay. In the 90s, the lost decade, Huggins came and we had a great team. So, it's a cycle thing. Mick came and then the Bengals started going to the playoffs. Now it's, you know. But I'm transitioning. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't moved on.
No?
Yeah, Mike's a stalwart.
We need a Bo Jackson jersey.
Yeah, but let's bring in let's go to a place where things are slightly more happy and talk to Brad in Indianapolis.
Would this be Brad Brown?
This would be Brad. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Brad. How are things up at the Scripps outpost in Indianapolis?
Hey, we're planning a trip to Denver is the first thing, so that's...
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey, no, it's short and sweet on that answer. More work for us, I guess. So, you know, there's that in that direction, but people are, I guess, cautiously optimistic about this at this point. They're okay with Sunday's performance, I think, as far as Colts fans go. But they know what's in store for this rematch with the Broncos and Manning and all that's going to go into talking about that for the next 6 days. So it's kind of a wait and see at this point, I think.
Yeah, I would say cautious more than optimistic because I think you're going to get your lunch handed to you, to be honest with you. But,
yeah, and it's tough. It's really tough to kind of sit and try and look at it in the other direction. Like, hey, can they go out there? We're talking about that last night on our Sunday night show. Can they go out there and win? Yeah, they can. You know, anybody can go anywhere and win. Yes, they can, but will they? It's just, I just think you've given Manning now, you've given him a week off to rest is the first thing for Peyton specifically, and you've given these guys a full week to prepare for a team that they already played this season. And I think it's just really tough. And it would have been the same case going to New England, trying to take on a team that's just dynamite right now, and it has time to get ready for this divisional game. And the Colts, the analogy I made last night, if it's a baseball game, they got to go out there and throw a complete game two-hitter shutout to come away with anything like a win. And it's going to have to be a perfect performance or it's not going to happen.
I watched, as we all did here, we watched the game. I think T.Y. Hilton, if he had hung on to a couple of those passes, it might not have been very close in the first half at all.
Sure.
But what I like about Hilton is that's the new wave in the NFL again. It's guys that can operate in space. We had Andrew Hawkins here for a couple of years. I think letting him go was a big mistake.
Yeah.
But what Hilton brings to the Colts is, I think, what the Bengals are crying out for. You know, Jim Breach just said, well, maybe they can put Mohamed Sanu in the slot, and yeah, he's a terrific receiver. But I think all these teams right now, Brad, I think they're all going to be gravitating towards receivers like T.Y. Hilton. Tell me about him and what makes him so special, because you see him on a daily basis.
Yeah, Hilton's interesting. He's a quiet guy. He will, I think, as time goes on, he has a little bit of that Marvin Harrison-ness to his game, and he's a little more outgoing than Harrison was, particularly in the later part of his career. Harrison just didn't want to talk to anybody about anything ever. But Hilton is he is the kind of guy that is going to benefit from playing with Andrew Luck. He's a sponge. He learns things quickly. He has picked up so much from getting a chance to play with Reggie Wayne, and not a receiver that comes in and says, I'm this kind of receiver, I'm going to play this kind of game. He's the guy that's come in with this offense and says, what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
Where do you need me to be? How can I make plays for this team? And I think a good example of yesterday is he had 3 drops kind of, I think, in the first 4 or 5 times he got thrown to, but he sticks with it. They keep going to him, and by the time the plays need to be made, he made 5 or 6 really good catches, a couple of them pretty important to kind of get that momentum shifted in the direction when Cincy came and tied it up at 7-7 there late in the first.
Brad, I'm curious to note the relationship or the thought process the fans or everybody has there now going up against Peyton Manning in the postseason with Andrew Luck, specifically after the performance that Luck had yesterday.
The fans are so bizarre with this whole Manning thing still. We're into the 3rd year of having Luck here now. When the Broncos played here last season, and even on any given Sunday around this town, you see so many blue 18 jerseys. And I guess if people spent, if you spent a couple $100 on those over the span of 12 years, you're going to get your money's worth out of them before you move along by a 12 and let this kid try and take you to that next Super Bowl. But the funny ones now are the ones that we start seeing that they're wearing. They have these split jerseys now with Manning. They're half orange and half blue with a 1 and an 8. And clearly they haven't given up on Peyton, but they haven't fully accepted the fact that he's in Denver now. So it's really interesting to see them try and figure out, okay, can we cheer for him, but he's for the other team, but we like Luck, but I don't know. It gets to be confusing at times, but they're starting to get on board. The more Luck does what he did this Sunday, what he did in the wild card game last year, if he can go out and this quickly get a win over Manning in this divisional game, just in year 3, it's really got a chance to flip the switch with a lot of people, I think.
He's Brad Brown from WRTV in Indianapolis. What does RTV stand for? Do you know, Brad?
Oh, you're killing me now. This is a quiz that I'm supposed to remember on this.
Really? Is it part of your initiation up there?
No, yeah, it should be, and it is. It's one of those, before they make you drink the Kool-Aid and ride the goat up here, you have to learn this. And I can't remember what it was. So we've been doing this, went on the air for 60 years up here, and there is something to it, yes. And if I had my notes in front of me, I could probably recall that.
Well, you'll be hearing from corporate later on today. Brad, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. As does Chris and everyone else here. Thank you. Brad Brown from WRTV in Indianapolis. You know, Mr. Satin has been with us forever. Mm-hmm. You were one of his big proponents. Remember, he crashed your studio one day.
He did. I'm a super big fan, all the way back to Luminosity.
Oh. Oh. Yeah. Well, Mr. Satin's back with us. He's been out and about, little Vox Populi right here. So let's see what the fruits of his efforts look like in the wake of this Bengals loss to the Colts.
He's got a new thing this week. We're going into the Stephen Colbert, David Letterman world, and he has a top 10 list.
Wait a minute now. He's got a top 10 list?
Yes, top 10 resolutions for the Cincinnati Bengals football team.
Okay, can we see it?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Yeah, pretty much. This yesterday was kind of a downer. So, start thinking about going into next year.
Next year.
On a positive light, what could we see change in the Bengals?
Oh wow.
So I kind of we were thinking through this, Brian and I. So this is where we're at for today. So first of all, let's bring back the flyover jets.
What do you want, Chopper 9 hovering over there?
I love it. I think we just need something.
Right.
All last year, every other team's got the flyover jets that gets the crowd jacked up.
Would it be like those jets that have like banners on the back that have messages?
That sounds great too.
Step down, Mike Brown, or something.
Hey, that'll work.
Hey, Wright Pat's nearby. They've got to have something.
Those planes don't do anything. What are they doing?
It's a defense budget. It's a defense budget consideration, I think.
Everybody's got budget problems.
Blue Angels are out of commission or something for.
So
that was number 10. Number 9.
Yes, I like that.
Number 9. I think we need to bring down some real Bengal tigers on the field at all time. I mean, let's think about the intimidation factor. Right?
Ben Zoo used to be in a cage on the sideline. Just turn them loose is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Let them run out there.
Let the monkeys ride on them, whatever you want to do.
Should we get the old swing band too? That was pretty nice.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Yeah,
it was good.
Oh, wait, hang on a second now.
Yes,
hang on. You mentioned something here.
Yes, sir.
I don't get this drum. These people with the drums there. Help me with that. When did that happen?
No.
Talking about the growl?
No, the guys in the corner. The
growl. They're called the growl.
Yeah. No. But now they got. They wheel them out there. These people with drums and I don't get that. It's like, what is that?
We're
Mike's
working on
down there on the field. Mike, give us.
Has anyone else seen this? I'm not hallucinating.
Cleveland does it.
A lot of teams have it. Absolutely.
Cleveland does it.
Oh, well, then let's have it because Cleveland has it.
The Niners have it.
Cleveland did a streaming show, and that's why we're here.
Okay,
so
I know. I'm sorry. I got to stay focused. I know. 9. Okay, I'm focused right now. Laser focused.
Let's see. So number 8. We need restroom upgrades.
What's wrong with the restroom?
Well, waiting in line to pee in the sink. That's pretty 2014.
Is it right?
I think it's time to
You've
upgrade
done that. Huh?
Were you ever at Old Riverfront? Oh my God!
The troughs.
Yeah.
Well, they just had about 5% of the bathrooms that they have in Paul Brown Stadium, and it was pretty ridiculous going in there. And after the Bengals would score, and you'd go, and there would be a line down around the corner, and the guys were finding all creative ways to take care of their business.
There's vomit-filled, sinks and all that kind of business.
At the stadium now, there's
vomit.
Really?
Yeah. And I talked to Mrs. Satin, and she walks in. Restrooms are great.
Mrs.
Really?
Yeah. So
but you flip that like at a Cher concert, and it'd probably be just the opposite. I bet it's just a wild guess on my part.
She's still exploding. That's true.
Yeah, she's huge. It's all that plastic. Yes. Whatever.
Yeah. All right. So number 7, new playbook. So the tricks. The trick plays aren't trick plays when you run them every week.
Right.
Yeah, right. So let's look at our playbook a little bit.
A little bit,
You know, that was a big
Mohamed
concern.
Sanu and the Wildcat. I mean, that'll we run that like 20 times and people get into it.
Yeah. Come on. So what do you got here? Number 6 escalators to 7 hills.
Yeah.
We've all been there. We've been overserved.
We have been,
we've been a little overserved, so sometimes you got to go home. We got the escalators to the clouds.
We got the
Isn't that what
streetcar
Uber's
coming.
for? Yeah, the streetcar.
That's true.
what
There
we're
we
gonna
go.
have, Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the escalators. Whatever. Just those
We used to call those the
Fine
loose
idea.
escalators
why is that?
because they would always lose, and people would be like coming down like that.
Crying, sobbing. Yeah.
We could get the old inclined planes, but okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Single loyalty rewards.
So I'm thinking Paul Brown needs to give back to the fans somehow, and I wanted to
Paul
ask
Brown's
you
been
guys.
dead for 30 years.
Mike, I'm sorry.
I'm
Mike
sorry,
Brown.
okay,
yeah,
good.
But the PBS, the
Don't
PBS
get in the way of a
loyalty
good
points.
story, Ken.
I'm sorry.
The ghost stuff. There's some loyalty there.
It could be
the
some.
ghost
You
stuff.
never know what
Yeah.
happens. It's only so
But
loyalty
that's-
rewards.
Where do you show this card? Because it already takes long enough to get into the stadium. If we got to scan something else, then I'm against it. Just as a fan.
Everybody's having such a great time, and and the pre-gaming around there. Maybe we could do something about that with the vendors, or we can get some.
I thought you meant you were going to be able to throw a pass in the middle of the second quarter.
Oh, we're getting there.
You get 1,000 points. Well, you know what they could do? Now you got me thinking.
Yeah.
You have the 1-800 jerk line.
Yes.
Why not have the 1-800 royalty, and then one of those guys that throws jerks out? He could also double as a guy that could scan your loyalty card.
I love it. I think
I'm
great.
just thinking of
Maybe you
options
could pet the tiger on the field.
here. Oh, there
Yeah.
you go.
See, there it is.
That's a great idea.
See, there you go.
That's what I'm saying. There are rewards
That's
for
the
us
kind
fans.
of that's the kind of thinking we need
No,
in the Bengals front.
You know what? I want to go back to that tiger thing because that's not a bad idea. Because here's the deal. Everybody. How the Olympics have
Petting zoo.
the Olympics have ice dancing, and they all want to tell you it's a sport.
Yeah.
How are we
The only
gonna
way
tie
you
this
make
into
that a
Bengal
sport is
Tiger?
if you get a goon from a National Hockey League team, and they got to dance and skate away from the goon who's going to beat the crap out of him if he catches them. The tiger thing falls right into that.
I think
love
perfect
that.
halftime is you get 3 drunk dudes down on the field and see which one's the slowest.
Yes. Gladiator
With the
style.
tiger chasing him.
Yes.
I love it. This is good. You got some good ideas today.
We're building towards
This is like
So number 4, we need to learn how to play under the lights. We all
Yes,
know that.
well, yeah, that's a
so
problem.
I'm thinking black lights, maybe like a glow bowl,
yeah.
something like that, like
Yeah.
the glow bowling kind
Yes.
of thing. Maybe we do some sort of
That's
black light.
nice.
right.
I think we could play better. We could even,
They could have some uniforms that are sensitive to black light.
Yes,
Oh.
exactly. Just we'll skip the whole incandescent whatever, and we'll get the black lights up there and just see what we can do.
How about a laser pointer where you can mesmerize your favorite Bengal player in the middle of a
love it.
game?
Yeah, like a
Just
cat-
point to
like
Andy
a
Dalton
cat.
where to throw.
That's right.
that guy.
Andy, over here.
like a little cat you play with your cat at home, right? With
Right,
a laser
yeah.
pointer.
That'd be
right
huge.
there, right there.
You got, man. I'll tell you what. You're coming in with some content.
Yeah, this is pretty late last night. So number 3, you guys already know this. We need a draft.
Right.
We're looking at quarterbacks, wide receivers, and some
Everybody.
pass rushers. We got to get some new blood in there.
Got to get blood.
I don't know what it is. If it's obviously we can't do the whole sandwich thing and put
No.
everybody in the sandwich and get them out and get a new sandwich in there.
No.
But we got to do something.
You can't fire the team. You can fire the coach, though. Not for nothing.
I love it, and you got to energize the base. I'm going to borrow a political term.
Yes. So
The coach
that's a
will
big thing.
energize the base.
Number 2, I like this. You got to win the North and get a bye. So my whole thing is.
Wait a minute. You got a serious one in here?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. You don't lose in the first round if you don't play.
There you
So
go. That's
we get the
logical.
bye. We don't play in the
See,
first round. We
see.
don't lose.
That's good.
And coming in.
I think of the 10 that you of all the 9 that
Sorry.
you've shown, that's probably the least likely to happen.
You
But
think
go
so?
right ahead.
Number 1 coming in here. Time for the Bengals to get Mr. Satin
Yes.
involved in the day-to-day operations.
Dun, dun,
I'm thinking about
dun.
Ambassador of Rad, maybe Coach Satin. Let's make it happen, Ken.
What about Marvin?
What about him? We're done with him. That's 2014.
Marvin's gone.
I figured you guys covered enough of that.
Marvin's like peeing and waiting in line for the concession stand.
Those are some great ideas.
I appreciate it.
When did you come up with those?
Well, yesterday was after that game, it was a lot of sulking.
Yeah.
And that's when it really.
Were you in your office that you came to us that one day on from remote?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you call it like the Hall of Mirrors or something.
That's what it was. Yeah.
A little courtesy
the
flush.
palace at Versailles. That's what it was. Yes.
Palace of Mirrors.
But see, there's no thinking like that. I mean, thank God. But I mean, there's
yeah,
no.
we're still stuck in the '60s.
Yeah, I mean, nobody thinks outside the box in that organization down there.
Well,
Nobody.
You go back to the last team that I covered. I said this a million times. The Niners. They were the last team. Mike Singletary. Everybody loved Michael Singletary.
Right.
The players, the organization, the fans. He couldn't get over the hump. They bring in Jim Harbaugh and gets it done. Last week, Jed York, 34-year-old owner, says, "Hold me accountable. Our definition of success is Super Bowls." Not here. Now, I just don't understand it. Marvin Lewis can be a fantastic coach, but for whatever reason, it's not done, and now the base isn't energized. You wonder if there was a lack of fight yesterday in that football club.
Well, there was on the sideline momentarily between Geno Atkins and Pac-Man.
Well, too many excuses. I mean, people are out. I get that, but man, you look at
Every
clubs
team's
like
feeling
even the
that.
Cowboys. What next man up? That's real.
That's every team. Every
Yeah,
team is
it's
that.
true. So I don't. Those guys like Sanu and all that, they need to step right up, and that's when they can become these superstars and get the fat heads on the wall and all that stuff.
But
what the Cowboys got that we don't is Jerry will grease the refs at halftime. Okay.
No,
Yeah,
Mike's
true.
never going to do that.
You know what they
right?
got?
We're
You
never
know
gonna get that.
what they got that they don't have here is they got a personnel department that can
Right.
actually go find people other than what they rolled out there yesterday.
They also have an owner that will spend.
Because it's an ego-driven business for him and Danny Snyder, and you pick anybody, the York, it's all ego-driven, and it's not ego-driven here with Mike. I mean, Mike doesn't energize the base. He doesn't. Successful.
Who does he energize?
Well, if you ask Mike Brown, would you like to make $30 million next year and win 10 games and lose in the first round, or would you like to make $25 million and win a Super Bowl? He'll take the $30 million.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We need a little attitude in this town. I think we're all ready for a championship. I thought, I was cleaning the room out in the trophy room yesterday. I'm getting ready for.
Why do you have to clean it out? There aren't any in there.
Well, clean it out.
Rappers and
Just getting it ready for some sort of trophy that I could create myself, a mock Super Bowl, chip, whatever.
You can still do that. It just wouldn't mean anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Honestly, and also, sir, Mr. Satin has been with us, and I love your perspective. I just does anybody think anything's going to change next year? Is there going to be a new quarterback, a new owner, a
I
new
think there
coach?
potentially could be a new offensive coordinator because Hugh leaves.
No.
I don't think,
That's not by our design, though. Right?
I don't.
Well,
I don't
someone
care.
else might force a
I
change.
mean, I look at what Hugh Jackson did this year. What did he do? I mean, if they lose him, so what?
You could say that across the board about everybody.
Yeah, but I'm saying if he leaves, what are you really losing? The guy was here for 1 year. It was all basically Jay Gruden terminology. It was the same players that Gruden had. Now, maybe they got more out of some of these guys, but I think the bottom line was the bottom line. It's the same thing they had here. So if he leaves, what's the big deal?
Who would be the next guy up if
I
they
think they were a
go
little more
internally?
versatile this year. I think that they took a few more shots down the field. I think that they got Jeremy Hill and were able to really go out. Look at the run game.
That's
ran
what
the
he did.
football better.
That's what he did. He wanted to
did
go to a
that out
power
of
football game.
I think he did that out of desperation, though.
I agree.
The passing
Maybe.
game was non-existent. I mean, last year we scored a whole lot more points.
I think they found an identity, though, with the running.
But don't you think a lot of that is because they don't trust Dalton, that they know he
that's
can't
what I'm
win a
saying.
game
what
on
else
his
are you
own?
Gonna do? What are you going to do when you know your quarterback can't take you down the field? You got to hand the ball off.
And because they have Jeremy Hill and can trust him.
When everyone fears our quarterback throwing the ball, it's time to make change of the guard. When you're like, I don't want this kid throwing the ball. I mean, I know he's a nice guy and all, but man, if we're looking at championships and looking for, you gotta go with some guy who's.
You look at the ball that
who knows
Luck
better.
throws on a consistent basis.
Well, there's a night and day difference between
And
the
then
two.
and then you look at what Dalton does, and you got guys. They look like it's Cirque du Soleil out there. They're going like this. They're going like that.
High wire.
And his stuff is right there. It's like right there. I mean, Luck's is.
I think you saw the future of the Colts organization and really the difference between the two. I mean, there's no doubt.
Mr. Satin, we want to thank you for this year's
Thank you
contributions.
so much.
It has been wonderful.
Thank you.
We're looking for someone with a little more attitude on the team. We're going to someone now with a lot of attitude. Yes, I'm talking about you, Catherine Nero. Good morning. She's joining us from the newsroom. If Mike
Matt,
Stroutman
Luke,
will
and
ever-
I've been sitting here
Patiently.
quietly for about 20 minutes, and you're telling me I got attitude?
Wait a minute. Quietly?
I have.
We'll have to poll the newsroom.
Testosterone to stop talking so I can have a little part in it.
Yeah, we are a little verbose this morning.
Well, I think you and every other Bengals fan. Let me tell you what's being repeated more than any other, and I'll refrain from four-letter words. The tweet, Andy Dalton is the worst, it's literally been tweeted dozens of times, starting about an hour ago and then moving back. I mean, over and over and over and over again by totally different people. So clearly a theme developing there. My personal favorite is Mike Pippen is blaming the Bengals' first-round playoff woes on the curse of Pete Rose. He says that until the ban is lifted, the Bengals will not win a playoff game. So far, he's right. So we'll just hold it at that. And then also what's interesting is, because this is what players do now. Did I mention I'm covering social media? Perhaps I should mention that part. Ray Maluga, after getting hurt yesterday, put this whole big, long epistle on Facebook. And so basically he says, thanks for sticking with me through the good and the bad. Sorry I couldn't finish the game, but when your hamstring pops, there's nothing you can do about it. I'll agree. But he says he wanted to finish more than anything. Here's the best part. Please don't talk trash and hate on this post, because you know that's what people do. We know we don't know what the future holds, but we're thankful for all you guys have done. That's what he's saying to the fans. 14,000 people liked it. 668 have shared it, which I'm sure means that they commented negatively once they did that. But nonetheless, that's where we are this morning. The Andy Dalton hate train is still chugging.
Don't you feel, Catherine, we talk about this every week, but and Chris, jump in here too. Don't you feel like when somebody puts something up on a tweet that says, please don't hate on this tweet, you're just going to get dumped on? Why would you put something like that on there?
They're going to hate on it regardless. That's the devil of social media. But, yeah, I'm not sure it's really helping or hurting any matters. But, yeah, I mean, that's what people are doing. I mean, and it's
is there any Fire Marvin?
No, you know what? That's interesting. I looked for that overnight, too. There's none of that, because I don't think they think anything's going to happen. I mean, I think that's the status quo is what it is, to use a terrible phrase, but that's what we're doing. Nothing changes. It's like Groundhog Day over and over and over again. Yeah, every playoff game.
I can tell you with great certainty that Mike Brown can't spell Twitter, and he could care less what's going on in the social media world. This is a guy.
I think that says something about Mike Brown. He doesn't care what anybody thinks.
You're right.
He's got the blinders on, and he's gonna keep going as long as he has butts and seats and people buying $9 beers.
Yeah. No, I agree. And people nowadays, when they're actually winning some games, think that it's a little different, and they think that, at least some people do, I think. But if you sat there through the 90s like I did, and you saw nothing, I mean, Dave Shula has the worst record in the NFL in the history of the league with a coach with a minimum of 50 wins because Mike Brown wouldn't fire him. Nobody else was that bad and kept their job for 5 years. He was terrible, and he kept it for 5 years.
Job. That'll tell you how bad he was.
Yeah, he's running a steakhouse.
I mean, he just doesn't do anything. He just sits there and counts his money, like Ken said. I mean, it doesn't seem to matter.
And it goes. Doherty wrote about it in the Inquirer over the weekend, and I mean, it's well known. Long before he wrote about it, it's well known. Mike Brown saw what Art Modell did to his dad and to the families of the assistant coaches, and how everybody's life was uprooted. And that is the basis for the way he approaches coaches and coaches changes.
Yeah, that's right. The most important thing to him is that his family keeps the team. And
yes.
if he does that, he will, in his mind, lived up to what his father wanted him to do, which is not let anybody else get the team from him.
Right.
And that's the point. Yep.
Right. But Catherine, I sense, and I don't know, because you're in front of that there, I'm not. I sense that maybe people have just they're exasperated and they just don't want to engage socially because
that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It was interesting. I mean, because even toward the end of the game, I kind of looked on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. I mean, people were talking about Stuart Scott dying. They were not talking about the Bengals. Like, this is just like, oh, it's another playoff loss. Here's a much more important story. That's basically what it seems like, and that's what it seems like this morning. And honestly, a lot of the tweets about the Bengals are about Rich Eisen's tribute to Stuart Scott while doing the highlights of the Bengals. So really, it's not about the Bengals at all. It's about a bigger story. So it absolutely seems like that people are just resigned to it.
Catherine, it's always great having you there on the pulse of the Vox Populi, and we appreciate your efforts on this historic broadcast, the Flying Pigskin this season.
Glad to be a part and go out in this impressive manner.
You certainly have. You enter the same way you leave, a professional.
That's right.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we're in the final quarter here.
It almost feels like there's this sense of despair, is what it sounds like.
You're beating your head against the wall. It's 4 straight years of the same thing.
And I think it's the first time that's ever happened.
Yes, that's correct.
A guy that knows a lot about football, because we want people in here that know football, Doug Pelfrey is joining us again. Doug, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
You watched the game. tell me your overriding beliefs as to why that thing went down the way it went down yesterday.
To me, the overriding belief is that, after the first quarter, when Hill went down, it was kind of like, you got Maluga that goes down. It was kind of like, why are we even doing this, for the next 45 minutes? Because it's kind of like, to me, you look at it, if we'd have played Andrew Luck yesterday without, his top 2 receivers, his top 2 tight ends, the 2 top defense, linebackers on the defense, it's a whole different ballgame. And it became not fun a few weeks ago, and it just seems like, nothing seems like it's going right anymore. Let's pull the plug. Let's go towards next year.
The one overriding positive of yesterday's game, Mike Nugent's kick right before the end of the half. If I'm not mistaken, a playoff record.
It was this.
Right. No, they said it was a Bengal playoff record. There was one yard longer in the all NFL history, but it was 1 yard from the NFL playoff record. Yes.
Right, and he got the fortuitous bounce off the upright.
He was due.
He was due
for having a bad one.
It was good that he could have something good at the end. I think he felt bad about the whole thing going into this.
Doug, you mentioned about all the guys that were out, but you're now a fan. You're now out in the community. Fans don't want to hear about injuries. They really don't anymore. They just say, well, they should have done this or they should have done that, or blame the guy that is healthy, Dalton. That's just the way it is anymore, isn't it?
Right, it is. But there's also 31 other teams that would like to. They like to be in the Super Bowl every year. So, it's just, I don't know. I get the fans' response. I'm the same way. You get to a point where do you want to invest any more time, energy, money, effort, whatever, into the team. I get not wanting to do that until they win a playoff game. But, you remember when I played back in the good old, what I call the lean years from 93 to 99.
Yeah.
We would have been glad to win, 9 games. Instead, we've been the 4 straight playoffs. I get the criticisms of Andy Dalton. I get the criticisms of Mike Brown. I get the criticisms of Marvin Lewis. But, at the end of the day, we've gone to 4 straight playoffs. The Reds, had a nice little run here until this year. They switched coaches, and look at them right now. So, to me, I don't know. I get it, but I don't. I think I try to be optimistic at the same time, a little bit realistic that, we are not the best team in the league right now. But I think if you have a healthy complement of all those receivers, this team's not built to be a Jeremy Hill team. That's what it turned into. This team was meant to spread everybody out, throw the ball, score a lot of points. It would have been an exciting brand of football, but we didn't get to see it, and hopefully we'll get to see that next year. I think if you have a full complement of receivers, you don't have to have everybody healthy all year, but it would be nice to have your top 4 guys. If we have 3 of the 4 of them, I think it's a lot more interesting year, and I think we're having different discussions right now.
I agree. Do you hold the belief that Andy Dalton needs to be challenged in one way, shape, or form, either through a draft or a free agent signing or something that will push him a little bit? Do you still think this guy is the future? Because there's a lot of opinion out there from a lot of different major news organizations that maybe one of the things that needs to happen here is that Dalton is pushed some way for that starting job next year.
Well, I think it's not only Andy Dalton. I think it's all 53 guys on that roster and every single coach and all the scouts and and I think Mike Brown. Everybody needs to be challenged. I think anybody that's afraid of the challenge probably needs to move on. I think anybody that's not being challenged is basically just there on hype, and so everybody should expect a challenge. We'll see next year based on Andy Dalton will probably get a little bit of a challenge from A.J. McCarron. He may get a little bit of a challenge if they bring somebody else in, but pro athletes, anybody that's competitive at all should want to compete and should want to be challenged. Egos and pride a lot of times get in the way. I remember, the first time I had somebody, they brought somebody in on me, and I was kind of like, what the heck? At the same time, that it makes you better if you're, unless you're scared. So, yes, he should be challenged, but not just Andy Dalton. Everybody wants to focus on him. He's part of the problem, but he, could be part of the solution. We just need to give him a full complement of guys to help out.
Doug, great having you with us today. Thanks so much, man. Good luck. Good year for the foundation, too, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had a good year. So we're excited about 2015, and I'm also looking forward to the Bengals in 2015.
Kicks for Kids. Doug Pelfrey. Thank you so much, Doug.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks, guys. See you.
Well, we've reached the epitome of the broadcast now. He's joining us again after, 6 weeks vacation?
That's how he gets it.
It's not the unknown comic, it's the unknown building maintenance supervisor, which, by the way, let me just say this. I think there was some sort of, shall we say, relief done in the hallway over the weekend. So how are you, Mike McCoy?
I don't know. You know what?
No, I don't know what. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This hasn't been a fun ride because I told you at the beginning of the season how the ride was going to go.
Yes.
Now, I got all these Bengal fans say, well, we made the playoffs. I'm sick of hearing we made the playoffs.
Yes, well, yeah.
The Bengals suck. Andy Dalton sucks. Marvin Lewis sucks. That whole organization sucks.
Well, okay. Anyone can assess blame. Who helps find the way out? Where's the solution?
The solution.
Because all I hear from you is Andy Dalton sucks.
Here's
Mike
the
Brown
solution.
sucks.
Ship them all out on the first boat to China. Get rid of them. Start all over again. A.J. Green is ready to roll out, put that Super Bowl cap on there. Them Colts, you know, they messing with the real deal the other day.
I know.
But ship them all out, man. They got to rebuild. They got to start over, starting with that quarterback position.
Does anybody expect A.J. Green to just automatically re-up here? When
A.J.'s out.
He's gone?
I already got the word. He's out.
You got the word?
He's from the ATL, correct?
Yes.
Okay, my family members and their family, this is serious, no joke. He's done with them. He wants to win a playoff game, and he knows he's not going to get here in Cincinnati. Now, that's his family talking, and I don't know if it's him saying it, but A.J. is wanting out of here.
You don't know AJ's family.
Okay, you keep on talking. I'm going to give you a little 5 B's and your little dollars. You won that 1,000-yard thing because what's going to happen?
We only have experts on this program.
Wait a minute, Ken, you going to pay me too, right? You can't get away. You owe me money too,
what?
dude.
I don't owe you money.
You owe me $5.
For what?
From the Pittsburgh game. You missed
Wait a
3,
minute.
4 weeks. Come on, dude.
No, dude. If you're not here to collect the bet, you don't get the money.
Oh,
you
is that how it
show up.
rolled in?
You've been gone for a month.
Okay, so in other
Do I owe
words,
money?
all the money I owe out there, I don't have to pay up.
What money?
Brian
Well,
says you don't
Brian's
have
back
money.
there. Wait a minute, hold up. Let's back up. Who said the Bengals are going to win the division? Somebody owes me money.
Who? Not me. I didn't say
Brian?
that.
Oh, Stroud owes me money.
Strotman owes you $5. Yeah.
No. Brian, didn't you say the Bengals are going to win the division?
That's a core belief
we
from Strop.
bet 12 games, and then we renegotiated to 10 games.
But what about the division? You was in the hallway talking about they were going to win the division.
I may have said that. I don't know that I don't think that I put money on that.
What you mean you don't think?
I don't know. We didn't write it down. I don't know.
What do you mean didn't write it down? You expect
You
me
need
to
a
pay
witness.
you? You don't want to pay me. What is this?
I do owe you $5.
You know what?
No, I don't know what. I owe you $5.
you
I
got-
can't. I have to pay you.
Well, why are you stringing it out there like that? I'm reaching for it because I'm just going to take your money and pay somebody else with it. No, let's be honest.
That's
no,
what it's called, cash flow. By the
Oh,
way.
is that what? Let's just be honest about the whole deal.
Yeah.
The Bengals, Marvin Lewis will never, ever be able to take these guys over the hump. They remind me of the Buffalo Bills when Jim Kelly, Thurman, all those
my
guys
God.
was there.
No, they got to the
No,
Super
that-
Bowl.
But
yeah.
they never could win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Okay, but the
I'll take
Bengals,
4
they will
Super Bowl
never, ever
appearances.
get you over that hump. As long as Marvin is there, it's not going to happen.
You have to have, and I like Mike Brown. He is he's the kind of guy you want to be your neighbor. He really is. He's a wonderful man. But you have to have it in your belly that I want to win. The Yankees didn't win all those championships because they had the greatest players in the world. They had the greatest owner in the world who wanted that. The Cowboys. You pick any sport anywhere. The Lakers. If you've got an owner that the only thing he wants is a championship, that's where it begins. It's like, we're going to win, not a game, we're going to win a championship. That's where it begins. And it's just not here.
I go back to what Mike Shanahan once told me. If I want choir boys, I go to church. If I want a good neighbor, then I look through a neighborhood for that. You know, at the end of the day, this is your hometown team. You want to win.
Right. But that's my point.
I don't need a neighbor from Mike Brown.
But I don't. But I don't. Eddie DeBartolo, who was out in San Francisco, it was a fire in the belly that we're going to win a championship, and I don't. It's just not here for whatever reason.
They just fired Harbaugh too.
Well, what was the disarray about yesterday?
What's
With
that?
Pac-Man and what was going on with that? You could tell it was over when they started arguing with each other.
Well,
what was the deal?
They did look like a disinterested team. in
It's
the
like
second
they
half.
didn't even want to be there.
That wasn't
After
professional.
They beat
I don't know.
Denver, it was like, okay, win the playoffs.
CBS postgame show talked about that. It talked about how there are times locker rooms, organizations, the base isn't energized because the coach is stale. Just saying.
Well, and I think that, again, as we talked about, I think that comes from the owner. I think, if the owner says, I will not accept anything less than a championship, then what you're going to have is everybody's going to say, well, I'll show up for work today and, I'll put my 8 hours in and I'll go home.
Okay, and another deal. the game was over, correct? Why was Dalton still in the game? Why didn't he let Campbell come in and just, be a part of it? That was useless. That boy wasn't going to do anything, so why leave him in there?
Why did they put me in? I mean, did it matter?
Well, still, get rid of him. Let him know, like, look, dude, you got to earn this position. It's given to him. He's not really.
I agree. No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
You got to challenge him. This dude is like, he's going to start every Sunday.
That's right.
No matter how he plays, he's going to be in there.
See, here's the deal with Dalton. I believe in my heart this guy is going to be something special. I believe it.
How soon?
Hang on a second. I believe it. I think it's more of a belief than anything else. There's nothing to support that belief. There's nothing to support that belief except that I think he can be there, but he's shown me nothing that would lead me to believe that he is going to be. If you're going on tangible evidence, nothing that leads me to believe he's ever going to be anything special.
You could argue the same thing with Carson. I remember when Hugh took the trade for Carson, and I was like, you really think you can win with it? He's like, I know I can. I'm like, but he really hasn't done anything. Now, in practice, Carson looked as good it looks like a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's big arm, all of that. So I get what you're saying. You believe all the tangibles are there.
And I think whether Carson was right or not, he left because of the attitude on the team.
Correct.
He left because he felt that this was just the Bengal way, and it was never going to really be any different.
He's been right.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying. Yeah, exactly. Because, things got better, sort of. I mean, if he was a quarterback, if he'd have stayed, he'd had a much better team than he ever had before.
By the way, bar bet, you can win a bar bet with this. Name the player who has made more money in NFL history than any player who has never won a playoff game. Carson Palmer. After signing that deal.
But look at the Cardinals this year.
Okay, so you were real interested in that, right? Brian was real interested in that.
Well, he's got to be interested in some the way he was blowing the Bengals' horn around here, man.
Brian, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He was playing well for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until he got hurt.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I was so enthusiastic last week. I'm just down.
We finally turned Ken in week 17.
I'm just down.
And then he just went right in the tank.
Because I think you go back to take a look at the teams that you've covered that have been good. That there's when you go to practice, if you were at a practice right now in Cincinnati and a practice in Pittsburgh, there's very little difference on that field in terms of talent. Extremely little difference.
Although I take their quarterback over there.
Well, he's all famer.
Yeah. So you're Mike's saying that A.J. Green's gone.
Green's out of here.
When is he up, by the way?
I think it's after next season. Correct.
He's on his way. He's done with him. I'm telling you. As long as you got a guy like Marvin at the helm, Andy Dalton as a C-average quarterback, they'll never do anything. I'd rather take the 3 and whatever years as opposed to get me there and you don't get me any further. That's like you kiss me all the way, but you don't buy me champagne.
I thought that was going in a different direction, but okay.
It's almost the same thing.
Ken, I think you bring up a fantastic point. Like, everybody's like, well, I've heard it in the newsroom this morning. Well, what's out there? If you replace head coach Marvelous, what's out there? And when you have the fire in the belly, you go get it. Because Jim Harbaugh was at Stanford, and they went and got Jim Harbaugh to do
what would a fire in the belly?
If you wait for the retreads that have been fired now, and you say, oh, or maybe Rex Ryan or all of that, that's not going to get it done either. You got to go out there and force the issue, meaning you got to go get a Sumlin from Texas A&M and convince him that this is the next order.
Or you have to say the way we've conducted business here in the past doesn't work. I'm ready now to cede player personnel control and total control to John Gruden.
Look, his eyes just rolled up in the back.
He thinks he's doing a good job. Mike
well, he is.
He's doing a good job.
Because it's the family business.
I understand.
And of course he thinks he's doing a good job.
You know, I've just been, I've stopped. You know, everything that you guys are saying are right, but people just find them. You let yourself slip into a world where you're thinking like your team is owned by somebody else. You know, it's always no. We're not going to fire Marvin.
Teams like this in the NFL.
Yeah,
we're not going to fire. Family in Oakland. And here.
Is PJ back there?
PJ's back here.
Yeah, hey PJ. Since you're doing stats, can you give an average for the year where Dalton is going to rank? You know, is that you able to pull that up right now? His quarterback rating?
Yeah, it's not very good.
Well, what is it?
Let me.
We know it's not very good.
Let me pull up the exact numbers. While we're on the topic of numbers, yes, AJ Green's a free agent in 2016. So 1 more year of guaranteed, and you know.
Is he unrestricted or restricted?
I believe he is unrestricted. Yes, he is unrestricted. Some other numbers of interest since we're talking about them. We haven't touched too much on the Bengals' front line on defense. Second fewest QB hurries and hits in the league.
Yeah, they were bad.
Bottom 5 in sacks. Just overall not very good. Obviously one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. We talk a lot about Andy Dalton because he's our scapegoat, but as good as Carlos Dunlap has been given credit for, it's not necessarily translating.
That's what you alluded
to. I thought Dunlap had a bad year. I did. I mean, 8 sacks. I mean, okay, but not a guy making that kind of money who's supposed to be your premier pass rusher.
You win football games in the trenches. That's what we put a lot on the quarterback, but you win with pressure up front, and you win with offensive linemen who can block.
In the year's NFL statistics, and quarterback rating, which is that one, Andy Dalton rates 25th.
Yikes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get nothing done with
slightly higher than Cam Newton and slightly below Sean Hill.
I thought it was fascinating to look at all the quarterbacks from the teams that make the NFL or made the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I said this. I said this on the radio on Saturday. You look at the 6 AFC quarterbacks and the 6 NFC quarterbacks. Other than the situation in Arizona, which is a disaster, and maybe this is before the game, maybe Cam Newton. I don't know who you put Dalton ahead of. Nobody. Who do you put ahead of him of those 6 quarterbacks?
Nobody. You can put him right next to Y.A. Tittle, I heard. He broke a record of not winning playoff games with Y.A. Tittle, so that's another thing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's why I say if you go into next season, you say, oh, Andy's a starting quarterback, here he is, just because you were dumb enough to pay him a lot of money, I don't think you move the ball down the field. I think you've got to get somebody in there that's going to push this dude, because I don't know what you have in him. He seems to, when you get a guy, when the lights come on and he wilts, when the stage gets bigger and he gets smaller, that tells me you got a guy that is either complacent or doesn't have what it takes to win. You got to push this dude. You got to push him.
And who's going to do that?
Well, that's what I am so friggin' depressed right now.
Since Andrew Luck got drafted, there's been Andrew Luck, there's been Russell Wilson. What other quarterbacks besides those guys do you have that aren't like Brady's and Breezes?
Well, they're not
system
quarterbacks.
That many quarterbacks, but that's not even half the NFL.
You know who
I mean, it's tough to get a Brady. You know,
you know who ranked number 8 this year?
Who?
Carson Palmer.
Yeah, he was having a hell of a year until he got hurt.
Unbelievable.
But look at all those college quarterbacks. This is what they do: Mariota, Jameis Winston, at the line of scrimmage. First thing, they're like this, then they back off and they look to the sideline to see what their offensive coordinator wants to do.
Right.
None of them go up there and change the play or anything like that, and that's why they all struggle when they come to the NFL. The kid that was drafted by Miami, what was that kid's Tannehill? I thought this guy was can't miss, but he can't read defenses, and that's why you've got the situation you got now with all these teams. They all need quarterbacks, and these quarterbacks can't run a show. All they can do is, look, what am I doing now?
I don't know. I think you're wrong about Winston. He's going to be a hell of an NFL quarterback.
I'd run like hell from him.
I'm telling you, because this
I'd
dude,
run like hell from that
he
dude.
doesn't panic. He's calm, collected.
Sure.
He
But he's stealing crab legs.
Wait. Hey, it don't matter. He got away with it, didn't he?
What?
Did he get away with it, yes or no?
Let me tell you something.
Did he get away with it? Okay, then.
But you're going to be put.
You're innocent till proven guilty.
This dude is Johnny Manziel.
You're
going to be putting out fires with him.
You know?
Off the field, you're going to be putting out fires with this guy.
Okay, you can't even start a fire with Dalton. So what do you want to do?
You're right.
Jeez, OP. You know, this has been a real fun ride, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah, whoopee-doo. I can get off the roller coaster now.
Well, this is the end of the line.
I don't think you ever got on.
Can you give me an autograph from AJ?
Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah. But weren't you the guy that's down on the field with him?
If I would have known that, I'd rather have that than $5.
Oh well, hey, you the one with skirt.
With who?
Skirt.
Scared. That's he's saying scared.
Yeah.
We're at the end of the line. This is the end of the show. We're not going to do any more of these shows this year.
Woohoo!
We don't even know if we're picked up for next year, as Chris pointed out. We got to go find out what. You have an agent?
I do. We'll get on it.
Why don't you get out your agent on it? Ask him. I want to know.
I was going to say, what's he going to ask him, if he can be on the show or if he can't be on the show?
You don't want to know what my agent
says.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
We had a great sponsor this year.
Two of them.
Oh, two of them.
Two.
BRG Apartments and Furniture Fair which provided this the comfort and the style and flair that we sit on here.
Just think, we started with none and we wound up with 2.
That's right. How about that? Next year, this could go through the roof next year.
We're moving on up.
There we go. There's our cast of characters, our merry men that and ladies that put the show on the air each week. Every one of these shows from Jump is available on WCPO.com for your downloading pleasure. If you don't have the app, you need to get the app because snow is coming tomorrow, and it'll keep you and your family safe. Mike McCoy, thank you for your efforts this year. Chris, as always, great being with you. The Flying Pigskin will be back somehow, some way, someday.